Good evening, good morning. The live feed is a little bit different these days. They've changed the what it looks like. Interesting. Welcome to this live feed. Thank you so much for being here. This is a great topic and one that can be deeply useful to who we are and how we choose to navigate and move through the world, of course. As you're joining, please place a number 1 in the comment box and let me know that you are here. Let me know that you are live. Let me know that you are present. And of course, I'm just making some adjustments to the camera here, so I hope that's okay. Welcome to everybody that is coming online. Thank you so much for being here. And we are speaking to love. Effectively, we are speaking to how we relate to ourselves, and we are speaking to, of course, how we relate to others. So place a number 1 in the comment box to let me know that you're here, and perhaps an emoticon to let me know how you're feeling this evening. And if you're new to these live feeds, please place new in the comment box so that the wonderful tribe and community can welcome you, of course, with open arms. Yeah. So I'm just making some adjustments to my seating here. Vanessa's got socks on and ready to roll, but are they colourful? Are they colourful, Vanessa? That's what I want to know. Matthew, welcome, brother. Good to have you here. So number 1 in the comment box, people, let me know that you're here, and let me know that you're well as well. So what are we communicating to this evening? What are we openly speaking to this evening? It's a subject matter that I would feel many of us have moved through at some point in our lives. And Patrick Howe, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. And the reality is that we move through different stages of growth within ourselves. And we move through different stages of growth in relationship. So I've used this term here, which is quite powerful, like from love to hate, and why? Why does it go? Why does it happen that way? Why do we fall so deeply in love with aspects of ourselves or with another? And why do we then, after falling so deeply in love, why is it that we at some times, at some points within that relationship, remember, relationship to self and relationship to others, that we fall into despair or disdain or even hate or deep anger for another or for ourselves. So before thank you, Wayne, I appreciate it. Hi, Sally, how are you? Welcome. I want to be very clear about something. When I'm speaking from love to hate, or from love to disdain, or from love to despair, or from love to disconnection. It doesn't just have to be hate. I'm speaking to this from a very particular vantage point. And I want to be very clear that I'm also primarily referring to ourselves and how we choose to move through life. Welcome everybody, welcome. I'm really referring to how we respond to ourselves and how we move through different cycles and different stages of our own evolution. Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. So there will be times in our lives where we love ourselves, where we have an admiration for who we are, and then there are times in our lives. Good morning, Omar. How are you? Welcome. We have times in our lives where we do not connect or cannot connect to who we are. We cannot connect to the fullness of who we are, to our essence. We cannot connect to our power. We lose. We in fact become deeply disempowered with ourselves and who we are. And this essentially affects the way we begin to move through the world and begin to function. Why does this occur? Why in one instance can we be in love with ourselves or be deeply in love with another, yet then the next instance or the moments following, we have this disdain, or we have this inability to connect to ourselves? and connect to the love that we had for the other. Why does this occur? Cosmos, how are you? Thank you. Popper number one, place number one in the so I'll tell you a story about that, Emma. Actually, that's really interesting. Thank you for noticing. So there's this gentleman. This is really important, people. Actually, and this connects to what we're speaking to right now. Yeah, Shamar, absolutely. It's a deeply fascinating topic, and I want to unpack this. But this story that I want to tell you, I had a haircut yesterday from a gentleman who's a beautiful soul, a beautiful human being. His name is Tony, and Tony has been cutting hair for about 5 years, and he is extraordinary at what he does. Not because I think he gives good haircuts, but it's not because he gives good haircuts. It is because he has a complete passion for what he does. He's deeply inspired, and he immerses himself, because I observe him. I can observe his inspired state, like he's in this deep flow state, right? He's in this deep flow state. And it's amazing to watch him in this deep flow state. And it's actually quite incredible. And to observe him in this flow state, this man that just absolutely loves what he does, is such an incredible gift. And he used to, in fact, for many years, his entire career, except for the last 5 years, his entire career was spent with the World Bank, being a financial analyst for the World Bank. And he was working in the Middle East, and he was working in Europe, and he spent many years doing this. And he's from Scotland, and the reason why he came to Perth was because his daughter was here for a holiday, and he came and visited his daughter, and he absolutely loved the place. And he's been here the last few years, which is really interesting. And now he cuts hair, and he's humbled every day. And he was speaking to me. He was just humbled every day by who he was, and just his craft. He's an artist, and he's so careful and so diligent with what he does, and he loves completely what he does. He's just so inspired by what he does. And I said to him, Tony, you need to leverage your contacts in the World Bank, get some funding, and just travel the world. If this is obviously something that you wish to do, is travel the world, and preferably or predominantly to developing nations, and just cut hair for people, because you give them a gift. You give them this tremendous gift of being. Yeah, it's amazing. It's so amazing. He's a beautiful human being, and he inspires me. So how does this link into what we're speaking to around love and hate? Okay, and he isn't it. He's a wonderful human being. But how this links into love and hate, and this is the first component of this, is when we are deeply present with ourselves, or we're deeply present with another, and we are deeply inspired by what we do and who we are and how we move through life, the opportunity for us to remain in love, and to remain in love with self, and to have that perspective where we can see love when there is, we can observe love when there is despair, is possible because we are able to remain in an authentic, inspired state. And we are in authentic and inspired states by being conscious with who we are, by making conscious choices about who we are, and knowing very deeply what actually inspires us and what makes us authentic. And by then engaging in that movement and engaging in those experiences consistently. And this is in reference to us. So we will find it very difficult to dislike ourselves, or be in disdain, or be discouraged, or be in disconnection from self when we are immersed in activity, when we are immersed in an experience that we absolutely love, that we deeply inspire by. Nobody, no thing needs to wake Tony up every morning to cut hair. And it doesn't matter if you're cleaning garbage, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you are a parent, if you are a student, if you cut hair, it's totally irrelevant. When you are immersed in what you do and you love with deep passion what you do, the world opens up. Your heart is able to open up. And in that space of openness, we receive. And in that receiving, we are open to, it's a cyclical process. We are open to being the best version of ourselves, and we're open to actually observing everything that is occurring in our environment. And it's an amazing place to be. So we move from love to hate for self, or we move from love to dislike or disconnection to self, when we are not immersed in an authentic posturing. And that's perfect, Emma. We must do what makes our hearts sing. And very few people in this world do what makes our heart or our hearts sing. And that's sad. That's really sad. It's sad because we're losing this deep expressive nature, this deep expressive component of self. And if you can agree with that, if you can resonate with that, place a number 2 in the comment box. And beyond that, I'd love to hear some of your stories, where some of your thoughts, your life experiences, where you haven't been connected to self and you have not given the best of yourself to yourself and to others. And how has that affected and impacted your own life? How has that influenced the way you interact and the way you interrelate with others as well? That's really important. I'd love to hear, and it's not just me that would love to hear this. I'm sure that there are other people here on this live feed, in this beautiful community, that would also love to hear that and love to be present to that story as well. And you're right, Vanessa, nothing flows when we are in disconnection from self. So how do we it's not about avoiding being disconnected from self. We don't want to use that language or take that perspective or approach. What we want, because language and words are so powerful in our existence. What we want to do is be able to take this learning of what do I need to do, but importantly, who do I need to be to embody my authentic nature? Who do I need to be to immerse myself in an inspired state of being? And what does that look like for me? And asking these questions and traversing this path, this journey, and sometimes it can be really rocky and it can be deeply challenging. And sometimes we feel like we've fallen down the crevasse of life. But we can pick ourselves up and we can pull ourselves out of that. And it's that constant understanding that we are here, that we are present to our truth. Yeah, that's deeply important. And our truth can flux over the years. It can change, and there's nothing wrong with that. And Beck says, love healing people. I'm a remedial massage therapist and I love my job and I love being a mum, but I miss myself with my passion at the moment. So Bex, what I ask you is so just to clarify something, is it that you are not practicing remedial massage now because you're a mum, because that takes up a great deal of your time? If you could help me understand that, help us understand that. And Charlene says, my current goal is to be as awakened as you, as is beautiful. Thank you. It's helpful to hear all your messages of support and collective, which is something I would love to jump into, currently going through mass change, I'm assuming you're saying. Thank you for your beautiful, kind words. Bex, okay, you're a new mum. Cool. So that's a really, Craig, welcome, brother. Thank you for being here. That's a really, Susan, welcome. That's a really beautiful place to start. Because so many of us move through these transitions, and it's not just parenthood. It's not just having a vocation or a career or an activity or an experience or a practice that consumes our experiential time, but also having, and it's not just from that transitioning to parenthood, but transitioning to another state of being or another area of our life. What can we find in the present moment? What can we find? What can we connect to in these new experiences that inspire us, where we can obtain and almost bring the essence of what made us deeply happy and connected and gave us meaning and fulfillment in those previous experiences, in those previous practices, and allow us to feel a very similar essence of that inspired action in this new experience, in this new expressive state? That's a very powerful question to ask, because we're not then becoming attached to the physical experiences that we are having, but rather we are choosing to embody the essence of who we are and who we were in that experience that gave us that joy, that gave us that deep satisfaction, that meaning and that fulfillment. Give me number 3 if you can resonate with that, if you understand what I'm saying and speaking to when I'm referring to what I've just referred to, yeah? Give me number 3 in the comment box and let me know that you're on track with that. So we go back to this beautiful story of Tony, who's just this magnificent human being, and his aura and his presence and the way he communicates and his softness and his humility and these beautiful virtues and characteristics that he embodies. And by embodiment, I mean he holds them deep within himself, but he also expresses them. He takes action in them and on them. And that's a beautiful place to be. This man is living in an inspired state of being, and it's irrespective of whether he is cutting hair or how he cuts hair. It's that he is present to what he is doing and who he is being. And he gives himself fully, and he's deeply attentive to his environment. He's deeply attentive to just being observant of the way his clients or patients or whatever you want to call them are moving through life as well, because he sincerely cares. So the next component of this is us sincerely caring about ourselves. And I'm going to get to relationships in a moment. I'm going to get to some of the fears that are involved in why we move from love to hate or love to dislike or love to despair. I'm going to move into that in a moment, but I really want to speak to this relating to self first. It's so important. And Rachel says, and I can't see the entirety of the messages, people, I'm sorry, because it cuts me off here on the phone. But Rachel says, I didn't even really know I lost myself until I met some beautiful souls that made me realize this. The last few months I've been doing lots of stuff for me, from having a massage to putting on music and dancing, and it feels, I'm going to assume you say it feels amazing, or it feels connected, it feels beautiful. That self-love practice, and self-love practices present themselves in so many different ways. That's key to maintaining connection to self. It's key to maintaining that inspired state of being. So I want to ask you now, and beautiful people, if you're just coming on, place number 1 in the comment box. If you're new to these live feeds, place new in the comment box, so that I know you're new in the community, and the beautiful tribe can welcome you as well. But I've got a question for you all out there right now. I'd love for you to answer this. Give me your top 1 to 3 self-care, self-love practices that you engage in regularly, that you engage in on a daily basis, that you engage in on a weekly basis. Sally, welcome. Thank you for being here. Sally is new. Joanna, welcome. Can we all welcome Sally, please, to the live feed? That's awesome. Thank you for being here, Sally. Very much appreciated. I hope you're getting something from this, that perhaps some light bulbs are flashing or flickering a little bit, or that you can relate to the information exchange that is occurring here right now. So I'd love to hear your top 1 to 3 self-care, self-love practices that you engage in on a regular basis, because this is really important for maintaining connection to self. This is deeply important for allowing self to cultivate that authentic nature, that inspired state of being, because we become authentic when we are inspired. So I want a plate. Yeah, okay, awesome. It's coming through now. Dancing, writing, eating well, and cake when I want. That's awesome, Joanna. Daniela says we so often give ourselves to others, thereby losing ourselves and becoming disconnected from self. Self-care and nurturing. We're made to feel guilty, but it's essential. Yep. Emma spent years with someone who didn't like listening to music and didn't like me wasting time painting or reading. Wow. Nowadays I'm doing what I like to do. Charlene, I've been working on my inner masculine and feminine and past lives, womb and inner child work, from my own methods to assist in clearing beliefs, programs, etc. to move forward. 10 epic weeks. Beautiful. That's awesome, Charlene. Crystal, welcome. Kari, welcome. I love reading, painting, walks on the beach every day. That's awesome. So what do you do to connect to self? What do you do to allow that inspired state to come forth and come through? And this is a perfect conversation point now that will lead us into relationships. One of the key reasons, and there's many of course, and it's different, it varies for so many different people. One of the key reasons our relationships fail, and instead of being very loving and intimate and deep, they become disconnected. We have we project an aberrant behavior towards our loved ones. But when we've come from so much love, One of the reasons is because we minimize ourselves and we maximize the other. And in doing so, we cultivate deep resentment for ourselves, for our own being, and for the other. And what I mean by that is we minimize our values. We minimize what is important to us, but we forget that the reason why that person fell in love with us or that person developed and cultivated deep love for us was because of who we were when they met us. This is the paradox of it, right? And if you can resonate with that, pop a number 4 in the comment box if you can resonate with that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to read some of these wonderful self-care practices. Morning pre-workout, meditation, quality time alone. Yeah, awesome, Sally. Music, soul relaxing. And Sky says music, guitar, meditation. Joe Dispenza, have a shower. Awesome. I love, and Rachel says fur babies. I love fur babies. Going out for coffee, beach, cheeky wine here and there. Awesome. Awesome. A few number 4s there as well. So can we resonate with this number 4, people, what I said with respect to minimizing our values and what's important to us? And by doing so, we lose this very deep, complete connection we have to ourselves and to what inspires us. And then we move into this almost catabolic state of being, this emotionally catabolic state, this spiritually and psychologically catabolic state. And we forget, again, this is so important, that the reason or the reasons why we connected with another, and there are many reasons, of course, why we connect with people. Some are conscious, some are unconscious, most are unconscious, is because of who we were when we met that person and who they are when we met that person. And for some reason, whether it be a societal influence, a familial influence, an externalized influence tells us that we need to adhere to what they need or what they want. That's not necessarily the case. And there's complex layers to all of this. But, hey Mary, how are you? But we must understand that there is so much more to life than pleasing others in a way that is devaluing and disconnecting from ourselves. Let me be really clear on that. When we dishonor ourselves by not adhering or not living our truth, not living our values, not living in an inspired state because we wish to please another, we will develop disdain, we will develop and cultivate resistance to that person. We will also cultivate anger and frustration. And these feelings over a period of time compound, and they compound deeply. Welcome to Australia, Vanessa, where the internet connection is that of 1974. I'm just being silly, but somewhat realistic. So we must allow ourselves... Oh, I've got good reception here. I'm sorry that you're losing reception, ladies. Joanna says, agree, we try so hard to be a compliment to those that do not reflect our true selves. And we lose ourselves in that process. We really do. We lose ourselves deeply in that process by attempting to make other people happy, or what we think, what we perceive to... what we perceive others to want from us, what we perceive that we think they need from us. And then we bring ourselves in alignment with this perception, totally ignoring who we are as people and what we need. So there's this term that I've used many times before in these live feeds, and I speak to them in my programs, my workshops and my online courses all the time. And it's selfish selflessness. And it's our ability to be very mindful, deeply mindful of our own path and our own journey, and give to ourselves in a very nurturing way, to be inspired by who we are, to live an inspiring life, but simultaneously to be very connected to the path of others, and to have a yearning to evolve the path of others simultaneously. So this is really deeply important for us as people to understand and to be able to connect to. So when we begin to then ask ourselves, why are we falling out of love, or why are we losing inspiration for this relationship that we are in? And the first place that we should or could look, or observe is that place within ourselves, within our hearts, and ask ourselves, are we living truthfully? Are we living authentically? Are we living openly? Are we living in a connected way that serves our highest good, that serves our truth and our love for self? And if we are, of course, then we are able to observe the dynamics of the relationship and begin to understand or begin to connect to what is actually occurring in this relationship. We can begin to observe the values of the other person, and is there alignment in their values, in what is most important to them? And is there an alignment in what is most important to us as well? And if there isn't, there's an opportunity for us to look very deeply into how are we behaving in this relationship, and why again are we transitioning from this place of love and connection to this place of disdain, disconnection, and hate. Now I want to speak to fear, and I want to speak to fears. Louisa, welcome. How are you? Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you, Courtney. That's very beautiful. That's very kind of you to say. And Kalbarri's an amazing place, yeah? That's awesome, Courtney. Kalbarri's a beautiful, beautiful place. I remember being there when I was a very, very young child. I just remember just very, very... I remember just, how can I put it? It's also just pockets of memories that I have of Kalbarri. Yeah. Yeah, Sky. So define easy, what you mean by easy, because challenge is healthy in any relationship, whether it be relationship to self or whether it be relationships to others. But when it becomes toxic, when it becomes spiteful, when it becomes deeply intense in a negative way, it's an opportunity for us to really look deeply into who we are and what we want from the relationship. But let's go into fear, because when we begin to fear elements of the relationship or elements of who we are, we change and transmute and transform the way we behave. We begin to operate from a place of closedness. In other words, I'll call that, I don't even know if that's a word, it doesn't really matter. But we come from a closed place of being as opposed to an open place of being. In that closed place of being, we're losing ourselves and we're losing who we are, the essence of who we are. We come from fear and we come from retraction and we come from a place of constriction. And that influences the way we treat others and the way we behave with others. Daniela says, retrograde has started early. I have no video either. Sign out and sign in. Again, Daniela, it seems to be working. That's what some are doing, and it seems to have a positive effect on your opportunity to watch. Joanna says, sometimes I wonder if there's a subconscious part of ourselves that actually want to experience the other person's values we don't necessarily like. Yeah, absolutely, Joanna. And why not? Because when we experience the fullness of life and the full spectrum of what life is, we begin to determine with greater clarity, and it's an apophatic way of looking at life and learning life, is we begin to define with clarity what we want from life and what we actually feel we need from life as well. And that becomes a really interesting point for ourselves to observe. So people, if you're just new to these live feeds, place new in the comment box. And if you've just joined, place number 1 in the comment box. That would be wonderful. And let me know how you're feeling around these fears. And we're going to some of these fears now. So some of these fears, again, and I can speak to men as a starting point. And we've spoken to this before, and I've gone through this, some of the core fears of men. And it's abandonment, it's rejection, it's humiliation. And if a man perceives in his relationship to be moving in this space where he's going to feel humiliated, or he's going to feel rejected, or he's going to feel abandoned, then he will begin to act from a place of fear. Now, depending on the personality, the sub-personality type of that individual, they will either attack, or they will defend, or they will retract. It really depends how they deal with life. And that causes friction and tension. And when that compounds in a relationship, and the cause of that is fear, and it's fear generally of the unknown, it's an insecure feeling, so it's feelings of insecurity, it's our inability, Gracie, welcome, how are you? It's our inability to communicate our truth. And I've been in that place years ago where I've come from fear, and because of that, I've behaved in a particular way that has caused tremendous friction in my relationship and tension in my relationships and my relationship to self, within myself and within that dynamic, that has effectively caused the other person to also move in fear, because there is so much unknown. So when we come from fear and we're unconscious of it, and then we begin to retract, or we begin to attack, or we become very defensive, or we become very aggressive in our posturing, the other becomes very uncertain. This isn't just for men, this is also for women as well. And in this fear, we lose ourselves, and we then begin to butt heads. And we're so stuck in our egos in that place and in that space that we lose our authentic nature and we lose ourselves. And if you can relate to that, pop a number 5 in the comment box. And Emma says, is it just me, or have men become such complex creatures of late? I don't know about that. We've always been quite complex. Look, the reality is human beings are very simple, yet we're also very complex. Yeah. And what happens is, as we begin to awaken as human beings, and as men in particular, in this instance, Emma, I'm just speaking to that, is that as we begin to awaken to that, we also awaken to the layers that is us, the layers that we've ignored for millennia, the layers, the collective unconscious layers that we have really truly been ignoring as human beings and as men for so long. So it's an information overload, it's a presence overload, it's a posturing overload, and we literally and very much lose ourselves. Emma, absolutely, and I deeply believe that men in particular are, no, not just men, women of course as well, just in different ways. But because you mentioned men, I'll just stay on that for a moment, Emma, is that we are evolving as men, as a collective, rapidly. And in that evolution, in that expansion, comes an overwhelm. Like we literally become overwhelmed. We feel overwhelmed in life. And we lose aspects of self, and we're losing aspects of the old self. And that leads me, that's really perfect actually, because that leads me to the next reason or potential reason why we move from a place of love to hate in relationships, is because as we evolve, as we choose to consciously evolve ourselves, okay? This is really interesting. As we choose to consciously evolve ourselves, we de-layer ourselves. So we begin to shed layers of the old self, of the self that does not serve us anymore, because as we are evolving and expanding, we are connecting more to our purpose, we are connecting more to our inspired state, we are connecting more to our authentic nature and our values, what is most important to us. And in that space, we begin to lose aspects of self. Renbei, welcome. And as we lose aspects of self, we become disorientated, because, and I've been through this, it's so overwhelming, because for so many years, we've operated from this place. We've operated from a place of, well, this is who I am. This is how I identify with myself in the world. Now I don't identify with myself in that way anymore. I'm not that person anymore, but it's fucking scary because I don't know what to do, because I don't know myself. The ego's in shock. The spiritual aspect of self is in shock. And I don't mean to compartmentalize. We come from a whole place, okay? But just for simplicity's sake. And we're in this disarray, right? We're in this complete disarray and disconnection from self as we move through this transition point. And this is the sad part, is that most of the time our partners or our intimate partners or our loved ones cannot hold us through this, because they don't understand it themselves, because we don't understand it. And it's not about understanding it being the be all and end all of everything, but when we understand it helps. It helps us release, it helps us cope, it helps us connect to. And that's deeply sad. And then the partner becomes also very scared and deeply fearful. And why? Because we are scared of what we do not know. We are scared of what we are unaware of. We fear what is the unknown. And in that fear, we panic. Ani Silvana, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. In that fear, we panic. And again, when we act from fear, we come and we act from a constricted space. Thank you, Craig. We come from a place that is not love, and it's fear. And in fear, anger resides, frustration resides, pain resides, self-absorption resides. Yeah, that is, Craig. That is the real courage, my friend, is to hold that space for your partner whilst they're moving through their stuff and you're also moving through your stuff. And it's a balancing act. And when I say moving through stuff, it is really a transition. It is a transmutation of self. And we all experience a transmutation of self. And the more so, here's the key, right? The more self-aware we are around who we are and our being and what our values are, our likes, our dislikes, our preferences in life, the more self-awareness we have, the more consciousness of self we have, the deeper we can communicate that to the beautiful people in our lives, to our intimate partners, to our loved ones, our families, our friends, our colleagues, the world, Mother Earth, etc. We can say, hey, I'm progressing and moving through a particular pain point where I'm losing the old aspect of self. But let me tell you that this new aspect of self that is emerging, I promise you, you will fall in love with, you will love, because you will be connected to this. But then that partner also may be very scared of, well, hold on, all I know is this. And now you're being someone else. What does that actually mean? And it's there in that point where communication is so critical. Open, conscious, beautiful communication, which leads me to the next point. That is why, another reason why we move from love to hate. We cease to communicate our truth. Give me a number 7. Are we number 7 or 6? Hold on, I'll lose my numbers. Number 6. Why do I always miss out number 6? Star, welcome. Give me number 6 in the comment box if you can resonate with that. Yeah, if you can resonate with us losing ourselves in that process and not communicating clearly, and communication being so deeply important. Because most of us will either attack or retract. Again, fight, flight, freeze. Craig, absolutely. So Craig is a dear friend of mine, and this isn't a bias, but it is, but it isn't, but it is, but it isn't, but it is, but it isn't. And that's not the video breaking there, it's me repeating myself 3 or 4 times. Craig's a conscious human being who's on his journey, and I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this. And he's a beautiful human being, and he's not perfect, he's very far from it. Just like we all are. I shouldn't speak for anyone else, but I'm definitely not perfect, very far from it. But Craig is a conscious being, and I want everybody to give a number 7 if they can agree with that. The mark of a real man, and I'll say the mark of a beautiful human being, is to hold space and hold courage when their partner is in fear and acting from fear. And even if we are acting from fear, we place our ego aside. And imagine both partners actually doing this. Place the ego aside for a moment, step into that empowered, authentic state and come from love. What would happen in the relationship? How would we transcend those layers, and how would we evolve into the relationship? We give Craig a number 7 for that beautiful comment, please. Please. Yeah, it is the time to give more love, not less. Absolutely. Absolutely. Feeling it. Feeling that love, Craig. Feel it, brother. It's well deserved. And it is deeply well deserved. And Dawn says, thank you, Omar. I held space for too long. He was in and out, up and down, very stressful for me. He was inauthentic. I'm free today. I feel such peace. And Dawn, that's really important as well, because that comes to knowing self. Yeah. So the more you know self, the clearer you'll set boundaries. Again, that leads me to the next phase of this. Why relationships go from love to hate is because we are unable to set healthy boundaries for ourselves, because we do not know ourselves in depth and with clarity. We do not know ourselves with the love that we should or could know ourselves with. And we don't set healthy boundaries with what we allow to happen. Most people, unless they have a pathology, don't wish to hurt the other person. They will simply act and behave in a preconditioned manner, in behaviors that they have been accustomed to for so long, since since they were a young child probably. And if we allow people to act in a particular way that does not resonate with us, that hurts us, that upsets us, then we're simply giving them permission to do that because they don't know any better. Because we are usually generally blind and oblivious to the way we behave and the way we impact others. And it's not until we engage in very deep processes of self-awareness praxis and consciousness work around self that we are able to be more mindful autonomously without the other person needing to tell us. But that comes with a great deal amount of practice, yeah? Thank you, Charlene. Joanna says, would you agree that women are not the ones to teach men about self-awareness in a relationship? I seem to always be the teacher and it seems this dynamic doesn't work. I feel I can't respect my partner. I don't know what you've said after that, Joanna. To answer your question, you're effectively what you're asking is the purpose of partnerships. And the purpose of partnerships or conscious relationships is to teach each other. Stephanie, welcome. Sylvia, welcome. If you're just coming on the live feed, pop number 1 in the comment box. Let us know that you're here. My partner and I can't learn from. Okay, so effectively the purpose of conscious relationships is we need to be asking, I did this in a live feed a couple of weeks ago, we need to be asking 4 key questions. This is what each person asks of themselves. Am I growing in this relationship as a product of the other? Is the other growing as a product of me? Am I assisting the other to grow, and is the other assisting me to grow? So I'm just reading what Emma said. I'll go into that in a moment, Emma. So effectively what we're asking, the purpose of a relationship is for us as individuals to grow. So both partners must be growing the relationship. It's not for the sake of the relationship. Yeah. And also an additional question to ask is, does each partner bring out the best in, when I say the best, does each partner allow the other to be and live in an inspired state of being and live on their purpose and in their purpose, so they are of greater service to humanity as well, and to Earth and to the universe per se. So they're living this, does the other partner exemplify this support and this empowerment to allow the other to live fully in that space? Yeah, that's really, really important as well. So when you're asking, is it the purpose of the woman to teach the man, it depends from what intention you're asking that question. If one partner is constantly the teacher and one is the student per se, that's not a balanced, harmoniously balanced, healthy relationship. We are there to teach each other. The masculine must lead the feminine, however. Now, that may not sound right, but please bear with me for a moment. Remember, masculine and feminine expressions reside both within males and females, yeah? And there's almost like a natural order to things with respect to that. The masculine leads the feminine in certain ways, and there's a balance and an interchange that occurs. And in tantric philosophy, and particularly in non-dual Saiva tantric philosophy, it's the masculine that leads the feminine in relationship within self and to self, and in relationships as well. But we must be teaching each other, and we must be open to learning from each other and growing together symbiotically, and also in balance, in harmonious balance, equitably. There must be equity in the relationship. And if we are constantly feeling that we are teaching and giving and not receiving, and also not learning, the relationship will become stagnant. There needs to be a balanced interchange, yeah? So we must understand that another reason why we suffer in relationship and why we move from love to hate is because once we transcend that first stage of love, okay, and again, I've spoken to this a few weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, the 3 stages of love. You can check out that video on YouTube as well, my YouTube channel, S.Sifandos. And 3 stages of love. And once we move past that first stage of love, where those neurochemicals are just being dumped for a period of time, on average 3 years, we say, we move into a place where we begin to challenge ourselves, and we fall into a place of comfort, so to speak, where we're able to be even deeper authentic with each other. And that's when much of if we haven't done deep work on ourselves, much of our wounding or much of our patterning comes up to the surface, and we challenge the other person. and the other person challenges us. Now, here's the key. We must understand that the reason, the unconscious and conscious reasons why we bring ourselves into relationship and why we attract certain people into our lives is our primary adult relationships, and pay really close attention to this, beautiful people. Our primary adult relationships are predicated on what we did and did not receive, both consciously and unconsciously, from our primary caregivers. And we try and fill that void of needing in our adult relationships. Now, when we get to that second stage of love and evolution of love, we begin to really bring that out in each other. And there's an opportunity there for growth. Here's something really beautiful for you. The deeper the pain and the challenge, the more profound the growth, and the more profound the opportunity to grow into each other and into ourselves. If you can resonate with that, pop a number 8 in the comment box. Paul, thank you for joining. If you're just coming on, beautiful people, place number 1 in the comment box to let me know that you're here. And if you're new to these live feeds, place new in the comment box so that I know that you're here. We do wish to be consistently challenged, Emma, and we need to be consistently challenged. Most people, however, shy away from being challenged because it's viewed as something that's negative or bad, or something that's not healthy or helpful. But in fact, that's where we grow. And the primary purpose of being alive, of having these existential experiences, of being present, of expanding, of being conscious, is to expand and to grow. And we grow through challenge. We deeply grow through challenge. And when we realize that, and it becomes a belief system within ourselves, we view those opportunities where we are being challenged by the other in a non-toxic way, of course. Because if there's toxicity in the relationship, and again, did a video on that a couple of weeks ago, or it could have been last week or the week before, can't remember, on toxic relationship. If there's toxicity in the relationship, we must, if we are not growing in the relationship, if there's no growth for ourselves or the other, we really need to let the relationship go and move on. Because it is all about growth in the relationship. Thank you, Joanna. And again, you can see that on my YouTube channel, S.Sifandos. It will be one of the latest ones, yeah? So when we begin to look at why do we move from love to hate, there's a number of reasons that obviously I've listed here, of course, and how that actually affects our being. We wish to connect to our truth, and there are certain virtues that we can practice whilst moving through challenge and difficulty. One is to observe fear for what it is, which is a tremendous teacher of life. Those fears that come up within us is to sit with them, to be with them, to breathe with them, to be patient with them. Patience is another virtue. Patience of understanding self, of moving through life with self, of connecting to self, with everything that we are and everything that we can be. Having that patience also for our loved ones, and supporting them through their own growth, supporting them through who they are, through how they move through life. Understanding that their growth can be our growth, that their expansion can be our expansion. And to not fear that expansion, to not fear that change, that transmutation, that transformation, but rather to embrace it. And the moment we embrace it is the moment we diffuse it. We diffuse the fear that often comes with change. And give me a number 9 in the comment box if you can relate to that. When we release the fear around change, we diffuse its potency to paralyze our actions, and for us to come from then fear or defense or attack. Excuse me. That allows us to move through life with a greater presence. That allows us to move through life with a greater connection to self and to other. Because when we remove the veil of fear, we are able to see with a deeper clarity. We are able to sit with who we are in that present moment. And in that present moment, that's where the wonder occurs. That's where the wisdom downloads and moves through us. Joanna, that's beautiful. Love fear, because fear is a tremendous teacher. It's a beautifully tremendous teacher. It allows us to experience the fullness of life. We often move away from fear so much. Before we allow fear to dissipate, it's so important that we connect to fear and we move through fear, not around or ignore it or suppress it. Bruce, welcome. Deborah, welcome. Thank you for being here. But rather, if we take the time to understand ourselves, we are able to connect deeper to ourselves and our partners and our loved ones, whoever they may be. Jada, I'm based in Perth, Western Australia, but I travel a fair amount. Thank you for asking. So, beautiful people, I'm going to begin to wrap that up now. And I'm going to say thank you so much for being here. If you can resonate with this message, please share it. Share this message with your loved ones, share it via social media. And if you can connect to this message, begin to understand a little bit of what we spoke to this evening around fear, around knowing self, around authenticity, around freedom, around loving self, around caring about self, around some of those self-care practices that you engage in, or perhaps that you've been thinking about engaging in, begin to engage in, because those self-care practices create an openness in our heart, in our beingness, in our minds, in our souls. And when we're able to do that, we're able to view life differently. Joanna says, come to Cali. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm actually, I'll be in the US in a few months for some work, which is cool. And I'll be in California, I'm sure. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for your beautiful, kind words, people. Thank you. So really begin to, the simplicity of self-care practices allow us to connect to ourselves. Yeah, the magnificence of self-care practices allow us to know ourselves with greater efficacy, and then we make choices around that knowledge instead of making choices that are not actually based on our truth. Are you serious? The 50-minute plus. I've been going for how long? It's a 53 minutes. Not that I'm timing or anything. It just happens to be that. But when I first started these, they were a lot shorter. They're getting a lot longer now. No, it's I've just got a little bit of background music. This is actually the theme. The song that's on at the moment is the theme from Braveheart, the freedom theme. So I still have 8 minutes. Okay, Rachel. Well, look, I'll take. Oh, wowza, words of wisdom. Oh, thank you, Joanna. Now I get it. Time flies when I'm having fun. Okay, so I've got 8 minutes. Very happy to oblige. I've got 7 minutes actually. Ask some questions. Let's do some. Let's Wendy, welcome. Lovely to have you here. Let's do some Q&A. How's that sound? Let's do some Q&A. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions? I'll sit here silently waiting, if I can be silent. Jada, being in Melbourne or Sydney next year. Oh, actually, hold on. We're going to be there this year. Maybe this year. Corey, welcome, brother. Another beautifully conscious human being, conscious man coming online. Thank you so much. So I've got 6-7 minutes. Time's ticking. Do we have any questions? No questions coming through. You've got to make them short because I can't see them all either. Do you have any questions on what we've spoken to this evening? You should be able to. I don't prepare too much for this. Just there. So come on, let's go. Corey, brother, how are you? I will just keep saying hello to everybody and interacting that way, or we can ask some questions and we can get down to some depth. Yes, I will be at Nexus. I will be at Nexus on the 19th and 20th. Craig, that's a good question. So I'll answer Jada's first. So how important is adaptability? Extremely important, Jada, because adaptability is a form of resilience and toughness, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical. And we need that in order to move through life. And what resilience provides us, or our ability to adapt, provides us with our ability to adapt in life, provides us with a perspective in life. Well, now lots of questions are coming. Okay, hold on. So that perspective is important. That perspective is important for viewing life, or viewing challenge and difficulty and pain from a place of love and opportunity and growth, as opposed to it just collapsing upon us and us not being to take action, becoming paralyzed. So adaptability is deeply important. Craig, my barber is Tony. I can give you his details, no problem. He is the best. He's so good, but he's a beautiful human being. I think he came on a little bit late and I was telling the story about him, but I'll tell you that after. Jade, I hope that helped. Any thoughts on astrological impact? Dawn, look, something I'm looking into astrology more and more as I mean, when I was in India a few years ago, I had some astrological readings done, and just recently as well. And I'm interested in astrology, very much interested in astrology. And let me put it this way, from a broad brushstrokes macro perspective, I believe that astrology definitely has an impact on the way we move through the world, because we're so interconnected universally. We're interconnected from the macrocosm to the microcosm on so many levels. And that's a big discussion. But to answer your question, yes, I believe in astrology, astronomy, the alignment of stars, planets, universe, etc., affecting our humanness and our behavior here to some extent, amongst other things as well, yeah? My primary sign is I'm a Piscean, Jonah. All right, I touched on dominance in relationships, male figure being more dominant, making the relationship more successful. Is this true? That's a really complex question, Emma. The answer to that is layered and varied. Ideally, though, both partners need to be in their healthy, expressive states. They need to have a balance of masculine and feminine healthy expressions, and come from that place for the vast majority of the time. When that's the case, again, I'll refer to non-dual Seva tantric philosophy, would say that the masculine would, it's not about dominance, it's not about being dominant at all, but the male will, or the masculine would lead the relationship, so to speak, in a particular way, in this essence, in this instance. But it's not about being dominant. And it's not about, so we can talk to superior and inferior. That's okay to speak to, because again, we're not inferring that one is better than the other or less than the other. We're talking to, and the superiority, inferiority will flip in certain instances. And that's all that is teaching and learning. So when we are teaching, we are superior in that instance. And when we are learning, we are inferior, and we bow down in humility. There have been many instances where I do it daily, where I bow down in humility to someone teaching me something. And I'm humbled by that. Whether it be someone showing, and I'm very proficient at movement, at human movement, but I do not know everything, and I'm learning every day. So if someone is observing, a friend or a training partner, or someone that a teacher's observing something in me, I can make that adjustment under difficulty and tension, then I will. So I'm inferior in that sense. I'm not being superior. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. There's negative connotations associated with those words that, again, various movements throughout history have allowed us to view those positions from a distorted perspective. So it's not about dominance. Let me be very clear about that. Equity and equality, more equity must be present in any relationship, yeah? I hope that helps with that. Good night, Vanessa. Yes, Emma, Pisces. Joanna, humble. Well, send me a private message. Wonderful. Sacred geometry is very cool. Thank you. Okay, just read about it recently. Dominant, perhaps wrong word. Yep. I'm definitely not a Leo, no. My father is though. Charlene says, trying to flow more feminine, but gosh, so much masculine energy within me, even with all my work. Is there anything you see in people overall that helps flow more feminine to support while healing the inner masculine? Again, a very layered, complex question, but beautiful question, Charlene. Thank you. It's about understanding, it's about having the courage to step into your state of being, your natural, authentic state of being. Because if you've been a particular way for so long, because of a coping strategy or defense mechanism or ego or from conditioning and so forth, it can be difficult to shift that. So it becomes really important that you are able to step into your natural state. So first, being familiar with that, familiarize you with what it is for you to be in your healthy feminine. and then begin to take small steps in that direction. Begin to act in that way where you can, when you can, first with yourself, because it's safer, then with people that you trust, respect, and revere, and then with the broader community. And that's your starting point, yeah? One minute left and 15 seconds left, and we've discussed some wonderful questions. Can modern relationships develop erotic intelligence? Jada, that is an awesome question, but can you elaborate on what that means? And I actually want to spend some time answering that. Can modern relationships develop erotic intelligence? I'm going to just go by intuition and feeling of what I think you're trying to say there. And the answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Because if we expose ourselves to ancient practices that view and observe sexuality as a gift, as an opportunity for growth and connection, expansion of self and expansion of self in all areas of life, heart, mind, soul, body, the whole lot, then absolutely we can. And modern relationships have become, in my opinion, distorted and dysfunctional and disconnected because of societal conditioning and cultural norms and values that have influenced our relationships and our relational dynamics for so many years. But there's a tremendous opportunity for us to become more conscious within ourselves and then bring that consciousness into relationship. And we begin to attract, like attracts like, of course, and we begin to attract that consciousness in our relationships. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. Erotic IQ, yeah, definitely. I'll call it sexual intelligence. Yeah, definitely, sexual intelligence. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say love you, wonderful people. Deeply appreciate who you are. Please share this video if there's a resonance there. Be safe. Be present to yourselves. Be authentic with who you are. I very much look forward to seeing you in the next live feed in the next couple of days. I'll be with my good friend Mark Reed on Tuesday evening. And we will be speaking to, I cannot remember, I'm not sure yet, but it is related to Nexus, yeah? So Nexus is that beautiful event that Mark is holding on the 19th and the 20th of August in Perth. But know that there will be live streaming. If you're not in Perth, it's no problem. You can get online tickets as well. This event's going to be epic. There's going to be so many amazing speakers there. I'm so humbled. I feel so blessed to be just a part of the event. It's going to be awesome. So please be there if you can. Thank you so much. See you Tuesday evening. Many blessings. I'm going to leave you with one more thing. What can you do today or tomorrow or whenever it is that you are awake or go? What can you do right now that is a loving act of kindness for yourself and for another? I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much. Corey, can't wait to see you there, brother, and look forward to speaking soon. Many blessings to you all. Thank you for being here. Humbled and in humility, thank you. Thank you, Wendy.